A pleasant afternoon to each and everyone. We are the group 2 and we're going to tackle about the parable of the talents. But first, let me introduce myself. I am Charlote Aquino and I'm going to tackle about the passage that we choose of the parable of the talents. When we hear the word talent, today we think of a special ability such as musical talent. That meaning came into the English language through this parable and is derived from it. In Jesus' day, however, a talent was a measure of weight and ladder of money. It had nothing to do with abilities. The passage that we choose is Matthew chapter 25 verse 14 to 30. Tells of a master who was leaving his house to travel and before leaving, entrusted his property to his servants. According to the abilities of each man, one servant received 5 talents, the second had received 2, and the third received only 1. The parable of the talents is found only in Matthew. It is similar to the parable of the 10 pounds in Luke chapter 19 verse 11 to 27. There are significant differences. In Luke, there are 10 servants, each of whom receives the same amount, a mina, each mina accounting to only a small fraction of talent. Matthew chapter 25 verse 14 to 30 compares the kingdom of heaven to 3 servants of a wealthy master. Each was given resources, the master's assets, and commanded to do business with them while he is away. 2 of the servants applied the supplied funds and double the sums of money. The master lives with them. They are richly rewarded when he comes back. The third servant buries the money and does nothing with it, out of supposed fear of the master. The master condemns his laziness and evil, casting him out. Jesus' servants must work diligently for him while waiting for his return, not wasting his talents and resources which they have been given. To sum up, Matthew chapter 25 verse 14 to 30, in the parable of the talents, a rich man gives his servants coins to manage during the man's absence. Each servant is given a different amount according to their ability. Those who had been given 3 and 5 doubled their amount. The rich man was pleased with their faithfulness and promised to entrust them with more. The man who was given 1 hid his out of fear. The rich man reprimanded him and gave his portion to the one who has gained the most. The story is a wonderful example of how we are called to use God's gifts and His glory, and a firm reminder of God's expectation of His children.
The first key term is talent. Talents are represented as a large sum of money. In the Old Testament, a talent was a unit of measurement for weighing precious metals, usually gold and silver. In the New Testament, talent was the value of money and coin. In this parable, the term talent has 2 interpretations. It was the greatest denomination of money at the time. For 15 years, a single talent was worth the same as a regular worker's wage. As a result, we know that each servant received a sizable sum of money. The talents in a broader sense refer to all of that gifts that God has bestowed upon us. All gifts, natural, spiritual, and material, are included in this definition. It encompasses our innate abilities and resources, such as our health and our education, as well as our material belongings, money, and opportunity. Second key term is enter into the joy of your master, closer connection to God. The servant is welcomed into a deeper relationship with the master, who manages more of his own estate, and walks in joyous relationship with him. When Jesus arrives, people who use what he provides them to enhance what belongs to him will be rewarded with increased opportunity and delight.
The third key term is outer darkness, which means a person can be cast out or associate outer darkness as a place of separation from God. The unprofitable servant of Matthew chapter 25 verse 30 represents a believer who fails to live according to God's will and is banished into outer darkness during Jesus' earthly reign. Rather than enjoying the excitement of the occasion, they are filled with remorse for how they live their lives and shame for missing out the biggest celestial celebration ever, or Jesus' coming. The last key term is weeping and gnashing of teeth, which means grinding one's teeth together, and another meaning is a sign of great disrespect and anger. When teeth gnashing is accompanied by weeping, it indicates anguish. When a person smashes his thumb with a hammer, he usually closes his eyes and clenches his teeth. The biblical weeping and gnashing of teeth, on the other hand, is far more terrifying, partially because it lasts forever. All of these references to weeping and gnashing of teeth point to the indisputable reality that those who do not belong to Christ will face a horrific fate, while His children will live in bliss in heaven with Him eternally. Hell will be a realm of torment, anguish, and despair. God will wipe every tear from their eyes in heaven. The old order of things has gone away, and there will be no more death, mourning, crying, or pain. In heaven, the agony that causes gnashing of teeth will be unknown, and there will be no weeping, wailing, or tears.
Hi guys, I'm Charlote Aquino and I will be reporting about the passage of our parable today. So, Jesus tells the parable of the talent to his disciple. It appears in Matthew chapter 25 verse 14 to 30, and the other version of the parable can be found in Luke chapter 19 verse 11 to 27. The story in Matthew: a man goes away on a trip. Before he leaves, he entrusts the money to his slave. To the first one he gives 5 talents, to the second one he gives 2 talents, and to the third one he gives a single talent. The first 2 slaves double their money, and they give the original investment and their profit to their master when he returns. The third slave, however, buries his talent out in the field instead of trying to make a profit. He returns only this when his master comes back. The master is pleased with the first two slaves, but he is dissatisfied with the third's action. He reprimands the slave and casts him out into the darkness. The first thing we should take note in Matthew recordings of the parable of the talent is that Jesus is in a private teaching with his disciples. This parable isn't direct at the Pharisees, as so many are. Jesus isn't teaching the masses. This is just Jesus and the 12, and it's one of the many teaching he's given them that day. The main difference between the two teachings is that Jesus tells the parable in Luke to warn them in the kingdom of God was not imminent as they expected. In Matthew, this parable warns them to keep on the lookout for the kingdom. While these parables are often get lumped together, it is important to remember the differences.
Good day everyone, I am Johnny Copipito. Then I will be reporting about the passage of our parable. The Catholic view or theologians or biblical scholars' view on the parable. For it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. And he would had received the 1 talent when a dug in the ground and hid his master's money. A man received 1 talent, and his master said to him, "Here, take what is yours." But his master turned on him and said, "You weak and slothful servant, you know that I reap where I had not sown." The parable of talents, the parable of 3 servants, or parable of the rich servant is an illustration of what kingdom of heaven is like. The meaning behind the parable of talents is that we are to be good steward of what the Lord has given us charge of. Jesus explained the parable of the talents in Matthew 25 verse 14 to 30. What if we do well to take care of and grow what God has given us, will be rewarded and given more. Those of us who squandered it will be not blessed. Do you realize and that everything you had, your time, your talents, your treasures, all of it are not yours? Seriously, yes. Everything you had and are is a gift from the Lord. We are stewards of God's gift, and the Lord holds us accountable for our stewardship. For many of us, parable of the talents hits close to home, and it should be because we all want to share in the Lord's joy.
The exegesis of the parable of the talents is noting that Jesus is coming back. It may seem like he's delayed, not coming back, or, not going to show up at all, but he is going to show up, and one day the king will return and we will be held accountable for how we use what God has given us. These resources that we're blessed to have, are we using it for good? Are we using it for the Lord, for his purpose, for his mission, and for the betterment of everyone? Are we using these to share the word? And that is something, as people has a lot of other people doesn't have access to Bibles, religious education. Well, I do. And am I using it for the purpose of the Lord? I think unlike the servant that was given 1 talent and absolutely did nothing. He was kind of scared, to use it, to multiply it. He didn't know what to do. But then that was a problem. He did not believe, and he was too scared to move. Anyway, the exegesis of the parable of the talents is knowing that God will not reject those who perform poorly. Rather, that some hate their master and reject his lordship over them. Just because we, receive a little bit less than other people. We're not, we're in our own eyes, in our own point of view, we're not as blessed as other people. And I know you guys know you feel the same way. Like sometimes we wonder why we're not as, blessed as these. But that is all according to God's purpose. The exegesis is saying that just because you receive less doesn't mean you have to despise the lordship for not getting the same fair share. No, not at all. And not being able to use your resources quite amazingly, like the 2 servants, doesn't mean he will close his doors. Of course he wouldn't. He won't close his doors. But we have to learn from the things that we are doing, for the mistakes that we are doing. That's it. Thank you. Let's move on to the next speaker.
Relevance or message of the parable in today's context. The relevance of this parable in today's context is that one must work hard and use their talents to achieve what you want to achieve, rather than doing nothing and letting your talents and opportunities be buried in dust. In today's generation, some of the kids or teenagers, even some of the adults, are just living a luxurious life because they're thinking that the wealth that they have is already, for them, is already enough, and it's okay for them to not do anything, to work hard or nothing. But they don't know the value of that wealth that they have from the parents or from the guardians or or the one that gave them that wealth. They don't know the value of that and how the blood, the sweat, and the tears of that person just to give them that wealth. They just think like, they just given this money, so we can just use this money and not even think to either give something back to them or just to increase it more so that he can share it to others. Like as that person has shared it to you, or your parents have shared it to you. Living a luxurious life and just stagnating your talent that it could have helped you in even living a great life that you want and without any regrets. It's like the story of Juan and the guava tree. Was it? It was a story from my grandfather. A boy named Juan was went to the market and bought some crabs. So when he bought the crabs, he went back home, and when he went back home, he saw a guava tree, and it has a perfect guava up in the tree, and he wanted to eat it, but he has crabs in his hands, and he cannot get towards the tree. So he just laid down there, and when he lay down there, he accidentally fell asleep. And when he fell asleep, all the crabs that he has get out from the plastic and went away went away, and a bird just went to the guava tree and get that guava and ate it. So when Juan woke up, he saw that the crabs that he bought are gone, and the guava that he was expecting to just fall towards his mouth also gone. So he didn't get anything out of that. In the lesson of that story is like in the parables, where you are not using your talents and not working hard to achieve what you want to achieve, you will lose something even greater, something even more than that was supposed to be should have been given to you. As God has given each of us a talent that we can use for our life, and these talents are different from each and every one of us. As in the parables, the master gave his servant different talents. This is true for us, as God has gave each of us different talents, and these talents are not all equal, because it is up to us and how we use these talents that are given to us. Not each and every one of us are unique, and so as we are unique, each and every one of us has a different starting point or a different circumstances that we live in. And we, even sometimes, the talents of our parents is not even projected to us, as we have also a different talent that we can show to the other people. But it's not all. When one is very creative, one is very knowledgeable, it doesn't even say that one cannot be creative while knowledgeable, but it doesn't reach the point where he is more creative than the one who is very creative. We have a different level of talents that God has given to us, but that doesn't mean when one is a great cook and one is just it's just an okay-ish cook. That doesn't mean that the okay-ish cook will not succeed. It is up to him and how he uses his talent and how much and his efforts to achieve what he wanted to achieve. Because it's like saying, when the great cook is thinking like his skills are already top notch, so he doesn't need to work anymore. He just need to cook and something like that. The one who's just an okayish cook can overtake the great cook because he's working hard. He's finding things and learning more just to achieve what he wanted to achieve. While the great cook will just lose something greater than just doing cooking. So, in each and every one of us, we are all equal, but at the same time, we are also not equal. We have different circumstances and different ways to achieve what we want to achieve. It is up to us and how we achieve this. Thank you.
That's all for our reporting. I hope you learned something from it. Thank you so much. God bless and adelante.